The book is called Disco Music, Movies, and Mania Under the Mirror Ball. It came out in late 2024 from Rizzoli Publishing as my third book for Rizzoli, and it looks at the history of disco from 1970 until now.
It looks like a coffee table book, is it?
It's a coffee table book with an awful lot of reading to be done. They didn't cut any of my words, God love them, so there's a lot of things to learn about the history of disco, but it's a real easy, joyous read, and that's my goal, is to make a fun book that's a celebration of disco, but also give people their history lesson about it as well.
What's your connection to the disco scene?
As an author, what I've always liked to do is to shed light on things in our culture that haven't really gotten the respect that they deserve. And disco was one of them. My previous book was about the history of drag, and although drag seems like it's everywhere, it's not really given the respect and taken seriously the way it should be. So when I was looking for a new topic, I thought, well, I love disco, and disco really was as a very wonderful documentary put it, the soundtrack to a revolution. And it really was the sexual revolution, the equality movement, and the gay rights movement. And all of that was coming together in the 70s, and disco was the soundtrack to that. And then later on in the 90s, disco was there for us again. And during the AIDS crisis, it was sort of the music you listened to give you enough strength to go visit your friends. And then, it's no surprise, during COVID lockdown, disco had a resurgence again, and because people really needed to be lifted up. So you were hearing a lot of disco on television as you were staying home and doing nothing but binging television and reading books and cooking and making banana bread. You were also listening to disco music. So disco's always been there for us, and that's why I wanted to write about it.
Does it cover the clubs?
Here's Madonna, Disco Forever. Here is, what chapter is this? This is the house music chapter. This is Boney M, who are important international artists. This is from the movie Airplane. This is one of the covers of GQ during the disco era. This was Mad Magazine during the disco era. This is, what am I looking at upside down? Oh, it's Parliament Funkadelic doing Flashlight, of course. How could I not know that? And this is from one of the great roller disco movies of all time. Which one? This one is, might be Skate Town, USA. Yeah, I believe that's the right one. It's Patrick Swayze in the center there in his movie debut.
What role did Paradise Garage play in making records?
Paradise Garage and other New York clubs really were the first time that music was becoming hits because they were being heard in the clubs rather than because you heard them on the radio and requested them at the clubs. They were breaking in the clubs. And people would go to several clubs a night often, and they would hear the same record early on, and they would play that record I like, and then they would go home and call the radio station and say, here's this amazing track and you have to hear it. So,
were there clubs other than Paradise Garage which were exclusively gay?
There were gay discos, and that's really where it started. There was the Crisco disco, and people would go to the Anvil, and people would go to lots of places like that. But really, the one we always think of is Studio 54 as being the ultimate place, and it was the most heterogeneous crowd you can imagine, to use a word that sounds funky. But it was gay people, it was straight people, it was celebrities, it was starving artists, it was naked women, it was men in leather, and all mixed up into a beautiful salad. That's what they always said. They were trying to make a salad, and they needed just the right amount of each ingredient. So
did you get in there?
I never got to go to Studio 54, but I did go to the Studio 54 of Chicago, which was known as Dugan's Bistro, and we would go there with our fake IDs. But that was 1980. And so disco was a little bit on the wane, but we loved it just the same. And the thing is, disco was only on the wane in the popular media. It really was not on the wane in the clubs. Disco music has never gone away, even though we like to act like disco was dead. It might have been dead on the radio, wasn't dead in the clubs. People have danced since all time, and they'll keep dancing. And when I wrote this book, one of the things I wanted to get across was how disco music is in the DNA of all the current dance pop that we love. You don't get Miley Cyrus singing Flowers without Gloria Gaynor doing I Will Survive. You don't get Lizzo and her songs without Chic. You know, I mean, if you listen to About Damn Time, it really has things like Good Times from Chic in its DNA. And so it's there very much with us. And disco got a bum rap, and it really was important to me to write about it because what people didn't like most about disco, I believe, was not really the music. It was who liked the music and who made the music and who consumed the music. They didn't like that for the first time ever, black artists, Latin artists, gay artists, women were pushing straight male, cisgender, white rock and roll guys out of the spotlight. And that was very hard for them to handle. So they decided we need to kill it. And the music journalists that wrote about disco and were so happy when disco was dying because of Disco Demolition Night, well, they had a vested interest in killing disco because they were straight white men who liked rock and roll. And it's a shame because what we're realizing now is that disco is as much import as the rock of the 70s, as any other music. And that it really led to new wave and hip hop and dance pop and EDM. And all the music we listen to in the 21st century has disco in its bones. And I wanted to point that out, and that's really what this book is about. So.
Is this book purely a gay disco book?
No, not really. I write books that have, they have a bit of a queer slant because of who I am. But no, it's a disco book for everybody, just the way disco was for everybody. The thing that really is different, and I think that what the gay sensibility that I have brings to it, is that I appreciate the bad disco as much as I love the great disco. So I can watch Saturday Night Fever and think of it as a film classic. And I can watch a movie like Can't Stop the Music starring what is now Caitlyn Jenner and the Village People, and it's terrible, and love it. So I try to be someone who really appreciated all of it. Some of it is I Feel Love, Donna Summer singing a song that still sounds like the future 50 years later, but I still love Disco Duck by Rick Dees and his cast of idiots. It's a terrible song, but I love it. And people should too. I always say, the greatest night of my life, I went to a Dom Perignon party and then had a Big Mac at McDonald's. That's the way it should be. The finest champagne and a hamburger that anyone can have, and you do it on the same night. That's the way I feel about disco and about the arts in general.
And what's the book called again?
Once again, it's Disco, Music, Movies, and Mania under the Mirror Bowl. Clearly, I like alliteration. If you buy it on Amazon, it's cheaper. Knock yourselves out. And enjoy it, and thank you for this interview. I appreciate it, and keep dancing the night away. I'm gonna go do that now.
Who's the author?
Frank DeCaro. That's
D-E?
D-E-C-A-R-O. Frank DeCaro. Follow me at Frank DeCaro Show on Instagram. It's dirty, but you'll like it.